Hey guys, how's it going today? This is Ben here from Bayside Fabrication. Today, I'm going to go over and show you how I make a roll bar. Some of you may know me from the BMW community as far as bolt and roll bars are concerned. I make roll bars for E30, E36s, and E46s. I do basic 4-point bolt-in bars and been making them for probably about 8 years now and sold, I don't even know how many, well over 200, that's for sure. So I do about, I'd say I average 1 or 2 a week. Some weeks I have no orders and other weeks I have 6. So it all depends. It kind of comes in waves. You know, I'll be a slow point and then I'll just get slammed all of a sudden. So it's good. It's been, honestly, it's been my meat and potatoes for a little while here. It's been really good and it's fun. I'm in my garage here. It's all closed up today because it's like 90 something degrees. I got my AC running, so we are nice and cozy in here. The point of this video is just to show you how I do it and what I work with. And I'll also go over some of the equipment I use today. I haven't talked much about what I have here in my shop. I know it's an extremely small shop, as you can all see. It's a bay and a half, but I really have all the equipment I need to get done what I need to do. Would it be nice to have a big shop? Yes, it would. Would it be nice to, you know, have a lift and all that stuff? I used to have a lift. I used to have a 4-bay shop before I moved here to Florida, and it was awesome. I'm not gonna lie, but we're doing the best we can with what we got. I have a saying I'm gonna steal from a guy that I met years ago. He said, "Keep it small, keep it all." He had a small business and he had 2 employees. And I asked him, I said, "Hey man, you do some awesome work here. Why don't you just, you know, what's preventing you from just going to the moon with this stuff?" And that's what he told me. He said, "Keep it small, keep it all." And there's a lot to that. I mean, it's when something happens like all this COVID craziness, it's easy to scale back and just maintain. You know, if I had 10, 15 employees or something like that, and I had this huge shop, I would be sweating bullets, and it would be a really stressful thing for me. So it all depends. I mean, it all depends on your personal drive. With that being said, I don't make a ton of money or anything like that, but it's enough to, you know, keep the race car projects going, keep the mortgage paid, keep us all fed, go on vacations, you know, do what we need to do. So. Yeah, there's definitely something to that. So that's where I'm at with things, and I'm happy the way things are. You know, I work for myself. I'm a one-man show, and it's fun. I do whatever I want, really, which you can't ask for anything more. So let's get into it. I'm going to use my E30 as a quick example. When you first make a roll bar, you need to make the original roll bar. So in my case, for these 4 points, it's just the main hoop, the harness bar, the diagonal bar, and a rear X brace. I don't have an X brace in this car because it's a different style, but you get the idea. And what you want to do is you have to get all these measurements done. So you make your main hoop and you get your mounts, your floor mounts located and your rear mounts located. And this is on the first initial roll bar that I've ever done. And what you do is you just tack everything into place. So essentially you build the complete bar, and then right before you weld it up, that's when you want to make your jig. I'll bring the jig into the shop so you can see what we're dealing with. But if you weld it completely, metal pushes, pulls, twists, and moves all around on you. So you don't want to put yourself in a position where you make it, everything fits perfectly, you weld it up, and then make the jig after that, because I can almost guarantee it will be off a little bit. As you'll see later on, when I pull a bar out of the jig, it goes bing, and it moves when you pull it out of the jig, and there's no getting around that. That's just how the heat works with after the welds, and like I said, you'll see what we're dealing with there. So I'll get the jig in that I've already made, and naturally the initial one is the hardest one to do. So you're starting from scratch, and it has to be perfect because you're basing all your measurements off that one, and for a production point, it's got to be right the first time, or else every one you make after that is not going to be right. So as you can see, this is a jig. This is for my E36 platform. You can see we have our main hoop base plates, and our rear bar base plates. These are the 4 points that are most critical when making a jig. Also, we have our uprights on the main hoop, so that holds the hoop in place exactly where it needs to be positioned in the car. So you'll see this in use in a few minutes. Right now, I'm just going to cut and we'll bend the main hoop. I have the predetermined measurements already, so we're just gonna get that laid out, measured, cut, and we will get that bent up. Okay, so this bar is for an E36 with a sunroof. So I make these in sunroof and non-sunroof versions. A lot of track guys will delete the sunroofs and the whole cassette and everything and just put in a fiberglass carbon fiber panel or weld in the stock metal panel. So with that being said, I make these, all bars are made custom to order because this length here is completely different for a sunroof car because it actually needs to be 2 inches taller. So that changes the dimensions of the entire roll bar, really. It changes all the rear legs, it changes most everything because it needs to have that additional height. So this one here is going to be for a standard bar, or a standard height, stock headliner, stock interior, stock side panels, and all that stuff. So what I did was I just marked the center line on here, and then we are going to mark the first bends, where the first bends start, and I'll show you how we go from there. Okay, so our first piece, get some gloves here. Our first piece of equipment that we're using today is our tubing bender. This is a Pro Tools Model 105 HD with a custom air over hydraulic setup that I built for it. So, and a ghetto engine stand contraption, so it's easy to roll around. So this is a standard off-the-shelf bender. It normally comes with a manual bar, which slides into here, and you crank on the thing when this is bolted to a floor. That's a total pain, especially in a production setting. This is a Harbor Freight cylinder, and there's plenty write-ups online where you can see how to convert one of these to these. Swag Off-Road makes excellent conversion kits. It's a really nice machine block that clamps to this. I made this years ago and didn't go that route. But let's load this up with the tube and we will get going. So this is my mark. So here's my center line and here's my two bends. So this is my first mark and we're going to be bending this way so that it's going to be pulling the tube this way. So I clean the bar off with acetone, and then here I have a little used motor oil, which I think works fine. You can use any kind of lubricants, works a-okay. So what I do is just kind of paint the tube with some oil, and because this tube is going to be dragging against this back strap here. So it's going to be sliding against that, so you want to make sure your tube's clean, there's no burrs or anything on your strap, because that will pull through the material and leave you with some scratches and things like that. So now, this is our tube strap. And what I do is, I hope you can see our mark right there. So what happens is there's a little play in it. You can see how it moves there. So I want that mark to be flush with this back strap. So what I do is I just take this by hand and get our line right there. Okay. So now the tension is taken out of that, and I will get the air compressor going, which I use a 60-gallon Cobalt. I've had this thing for years and it's just run really good. So that's what I have for an air compressor, and it's plenty enough to take care of all my air needs in this shop. I believe this is like 450 bucks. I bought it brand new and no complaints. So that's what I have for an air compressor, and it does everything I need it to. So with this particular tubing, which is 1 3/4 by 95 thousandths wall thickness DOM, you have, on this bender, you have a 4-degree spring back. So I need to hit 74 degrees on this dial indicator, which means I actually have to bend it to 78 degrees, and then it will spring back that 4 degrees to get the desired degree for this particular application. So you'll see that when I start bending. Also note, I had a mark on the floor that I use. This bender is level both ways in this part of the floor. Step is our next 2 bends that we need, and after these 2 bends are done, the main hoop is complete. So just from doing this a bunch, where that piece of plastic came from, after doing this a bunch, I know my second bends need to start on this particular one with this height, 12.5 inches from the bottom of the top tube of the main hoop. And that's where my next 2 bends will start. Okay, our main hoop is finished. Now we have our 2 down tubes for the rear. So this is my down tube, and I need to cut a slight angle on it for it to match up to the base plate. I do that. This is my Grizzly. This one was a G9742 metal bandsaw with the swiveling head. So this is fantastic. So on this one we need, it's not very clean, we need 7 degrees, and yeah, this thing just goes. These are like 600 bucks, I believe, brand new. And they are a great little saw for the price. So we're gonna cut these 2 down tubes and we'll get right back at it. As you can see, I have my jig clamped to the table, so it's nice and secure. And what I have to do now is create this profile, which is a little radius on there, and this profile, which is bent. And I need to make that out of 1/8 inch plate. So what I did was I scribed my marks for my holes on the plate, and then I clamped them together. Now what I'm going to do is I have this milling machine here, which is, well, it's actually called a mill drill. And the reality of it is it's a crappy mill, but an excellent drill press. So I got this for 700 bucks, probably 8 years ago, I would say. And it's worked great ever since. It takes R8. This is an Enco mill drill. A lot of other brand, this one's made in Taiwan. A lot of other companies, it's the same exact thing. I don't know if they're made in Taiwan anymore. They might be made in China, but I believe Grizzly offers the same one. Enco, I think Jet. All of them are more or less the same exact thing. So this one has an articulating head here. So you just take the crank, that raises, lowers, does everything you need to, and then tightens back up. It's belt driven, and the best part about it is it takes R8 collets. So R8s, this is one right here. R8 collets are the same as Bridgeports use. So that's what's really nice about this machine. Right now, I don't know what size drill bit it is. It's the one I use every time. But we simply are going to drill holes in both plates. All right. Now I'm ready to rock and roll, and I'm going to drill these 4 holes. I also have these larger plates for the base plates. I'm going to drill these holes, and then we'll contour the plates with the press there. Here's my Harbor Freight 20-ton shop press. I have converted this to air over hydraulic. So it comes with a manual bottle jack, and I bought the Harbor Freight 20-ton air over hydraulic bottle jack and modified it to fit. I put a little quick release knob on here, and it makes bending and breaking material here so much easier. So I just have this little setup, very simple, for bending plates like this. Now, this is my Swag off-road finger brake. This thing is awesome. Honestly, anything I've ever used from Swag is badass. They have really good product support. They have really good products, and it's just a great piece. So this was the weld together kit. So they send you all the pieces and give you instructions. You weld it together and everything's groovy. So we're gonna bend these plates. And there we go. Okay, so here are our base plates. And as you see, these, when they sandwich together, they're gonna through bolt, and the chassis of the car will be in between these. So you need 4 of those total. So those 2 are gonna be for the main hoop. The next ones are gonna be the rears. So these are the rear mounts. And what I'm gonna do is remove the top section, slide this off. Put that to the side. Okay, now what I have for this is actually a die from a old pipe bender. So that's one of the manual ones. I don't know. Oh, here it is. So that's a die off one of these style benders. Well, I'm gonna use the bottom die of the Swag to bend this and use this top one as my top die, and that will give us a nice radius that lines up perfectly with the radius I need. That's it. And that's the radius that we need for the rear. So I'll do the next 3 of those, and those will be finished. Okay, so we got all of our base plates done. You can see these are the contoured ones we just made. And next is to deal with the main hoop. So in order to match this contour, we have to notch the hoop. Okay, now we'll go and visually check the bottoms. You see how that's a nice tight gap there? Or lack of gap? That's what we want. So both sides look pretty good on this. And now what we do is we keep our level up there. And we measure from the base plate to the level. So in this one, we are shooting for 44 inches, and we are right there. So between 43 and 3/4 and 44 is the acceptable range that I have determined for the E36 with a stock sunroof. Perfect. So we are right dead on at 44 inches on both sides. So now we can take this top off because we don't need that anymore. And we can tack these base plates on. So we'll tack the base plates on, and then we'll get the 2 down tubes notched and tacked into place as well. All right. So now we're ready to tack these base plates to the tube. I want to just go over real quick what welder I use. So I just picked this up, oh geez, I don't know, maybe 8 months ago. This is the ESAB 215 IC, the EM 215 IC. So there's this one, and then there's a same size welder, but it's the multi-process unit, which includes TIG and stick. I just went with the straight MIG one because I have a TIG welder already, and it would be nice to have the multi-process machine, but I really don't need the redundancy of it, and it was significantly more expensive. So I picked this up for right around $1,000, and it's great. This was replacing a Miller 175, and that welder lasted me well over a decade, so that was a great unit as well. But I decided with technology and everything, it was just time to upgrade, and this was a great choice. Now at Jeremy and Garrett's shop, we use the HTP MIG machine. I think it's a oh geez, I can't remember off the top of my head, but that is a great machine as well. So all three of these welders that I've used so far have been fantastic. So that's just a quick overview on that. I'm just gonna show you my tubing notcher right now. So this was a Speedway Motors, I think, Speedy notcher. It was real wiggly at first, so I braced it up on the back. I welded some reinforcements on that, and it kind of just sits on my machine 99% of the time. What I have here is a 1 3/4 hole saw with on its R8 collet, and it's all locked down. I'm just gonna show you how I notch on this thing. So just to see how this one fits. Very simple, but that's how this particular notcher in my particular setup works out. Now we have our main hoop done. We have our rear down tubes tacked into place. Our base plates tacked in. And now we're gonna weld up this section. And after we do that, then we just add the bars. Pretty much the start of it here, and so now we just keep adding our bars. I'm going to do the rear X, we're going to do the diagonal harness bar, and then this roll bar is done. So we'll get that finished up right now. Okay, now we're at the point where our bar is ready to get finished welded. You can see we have nice tight joints here, and that's what we want. And it's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so this is what a bar looks like right before it gets welded. So everything's tacked into place. I try to do 2 tacks per joint. You can see all the joints are nice and tight, which is what we want. And now we simply go and buzz all the areas we can. There are some spots that are hard to get at, like back here, for example. And we'll wait on those until everything's welded, and then once we pull it off the jig, we'll finalize just those couple sections. But I know I mentioned earlier that you want to make the jig off a tacked together roll bar or tacked together structure, whatever you're doing. And I'm going to show you exactly why. Because when you add this amount of heat to steel, it moves. And you're going to see the movement. See that? How it just sprung up? See that there? So that moved almost 1/4 of an inch, which actually is not a big deal in this application. But just so everybody can see that, that's why we wanted to make the jig accurate as possible, because that amount of movement is totally fine and it will fit. And once everything gets together in the car and the backing plates, even if there is a small gap on the anywhere in the body, the backing plates will suck it all together, and that's a non-issue. And also, it will probably spring right here. Watch this plate pull in just a little bit. So as you can see there, that sucked in just a little bit as well. So totally normal, it happens on every single one. But for anybody doing any kind of metal fabrication, you have to take those things into consideration. Okay, well, everything's welded up and the bar is finished. So at this point, what I do is we just go and clean up all the welds. And what I do is I take a flashlight and inspect all the little areas. You know, spots like right up in here, it's easy to miss a little spot of weld here and there. So you just go through and make sure that everything is welded fully and clean up the welds. It goes on a pallet, gets shrink wrapped, and sent off to the customer. So I appreciate the orders. I love working for you guys. This has been an honor. And thank you for watching the video. And I hope it sheds some light on how these things are made and the kind of work that goes into them. So thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next episode.